My name is Mary Lynch and I work with Big Brothers Big Sisters in Ireland. You're all very welcome. I think we have about 19 or 20 attendees at this workshop. So you're all very welcome. I see more people coming in as I speak, but I wanted to start on time because we've lots of exciting things to get through today. So I just want to welcome each one of you. We're going to play a little game of Zoom tag in a minute. So you'll get to know each other. I want to also introduce Dr. Bernadine Brady from NUI Galway, who is going to co-present with me today. We're going to try a mix of a few different tools in Zoom, between polls and breakout rooms and a bit of PowerPoint presentation. We also have a video to show you. But neither Bernadine and I are that experienced in Zoom. So just in case anything goes a little bit wrong or anyone needs assistance in anything, Marina has kindly volunteered to help us out today with the kind of Zoom aspect of things. So thanks so much, Marina. And she's standing by to help with the breakout rooms and that. So I suppose in terms of the title of the presentation, we're looking at mentoring as an effective intervention for supporting young people who would present with a higher level of need. So in Ireland at the moment, they're mainly coming from the juvenile justice systems and the care systems. So it will be young people involved with youth crime and young people either in residential care, foster care, or in care of the state. They might be being subsidised to independent living. Bernadine and I are going to concentrate on different aspects of that over the next hour or so. So I'm going to present on our experience in operating the mentoring programme in Ireland, and then Bernadine is going to present on the research findings of two pieces of research into youth in juvenile justice and youth in the care systems that are receiving Big Brothers Big Sisters in Ireland. We're also going to speak briefly around the lessons that we've learned from our partnership, and I suppose the benefits of partnering between mentoring organizations and research institutions. So I'm actually going to start with that now. I'm going to flick on a few slides here because we've done a lot of this. So below here at the bottom of the screen, you can see the lovely colorful research reports that Bernadine has produced over the last few years. So in terms of our research collaboration, we have been 15 years in partnership between Feroiga's Big Brother Big Sister programme and the UNESCO Child and Family Research Centre, where Bernadine works in NUI Galway. We don't look that old, do we, Bernadine?
No, we don't.
It seems like many years. But to date, we have 8 research studies over those 15 years. And I suppose one of the most in-depth ones was the randomized control trial and program evaluation that we undertook in between 2009 and 2011. And that would be the orange summary sheet you see there on the bottom of the screen. So that was a very detailed research report looking at the outcomes for young people and the evaluation of our program practices and procedures. So I suppose kind of looking at the overview of it, we would see the benefits from our years of partnership being as follows. So the evidence-based practice, it yields positive outcomes for young people. So we're actually choosing a program that has positive outcomes for young people from research. So the reason Big Brother Big Sister was chosen for Ireland was based on the Tierney et al. Research in the United States, which was an independent research study proven that Big Brothers Big Sisters had positive outcomes for young people. And that was the reason why we selected that program above all mentoring programs. We also believe that involvement in participants' perspectives through the research ensures quality of our service. So we can ask the participants what they think of our service, but they might be biased if we're asking. Whereas if an independent researcher comes in and asks, then they would be more inclined to give a true story to them. So that has really helped to make sure that we are providing the best service possible for our participants. The evaluation studies, in our experience, have also shown compliance to standards. So we work off a manual. It's a manualized program. And so during that research, Bernadine and her team were able to look at the manual and see if we were working off the manual. And that proved we were. And then the last benefit would be that the programs validated as best practice are more inclined to secure funding going forward. So an example of that is off the basis of our pilot evaluation with NUI Galway, we secured philanthropic funding to expand the programme from a small little programme in the west of Ireland to a national programme serving 21 counties. So they would be the kind of benefits as we see from our partnership. Sorry, I meant to say, if you have any questions as we go along, if you want to put them in the little chat function and we'll monitor it and respond to the questions as we go along in the presentation. So in terms of Foróige's Big Brother, Big Sister program, so Foróige is the organisation that I work for. It's an Irish word. It means youth development. And Big Brother, Big Sister is one of the programs that we operate under the umbrella of Foróige. So the program is an internationally renowned evidence-based youth mentoring program. And in the evaluation between 2009 and 2011, it was described as an example of best practice in youth work provision in Ireland. The program is based on the concept of one-to-one friendship between a young person aged 10 to 18 and an adult volunteer mentor. We encourage them to meet for an hour or two each week, and the idea is that they build their friendship around shared interests. Once they get to know each other, we try and tailor the friendship to meet the needs of the young person. So basically, we're matching up people that have similar interests and personality. We hope that they'll get to know each other as friends, and then we will support the young person through intervention by the volunteer. All of the friendships are supported by a professional staff person. So one staff person has 35 matches to support. That's our numbers. So in terms of that, we have supported over 10,000 young people since we started. We look to support at least 600 young people each year in the program. We also have a separate school program, but I'm just going to talk about the community program today. We have 27 staff nationally, and we cover 20 counties in Ireland. And at the moment, we're funded through a mix of Department of Children and Youth Affairs, Department of Justice and Equality, and the Health Service in Ireland. Initially, when we started off, we were funded by 2 philanthropic organisations, but their funding ceased in 2013, and that's when we secured government funding. So I suppose ensuring quality services is high on our priorities. And in order to do this, we partner with the UNESCO Child and Family Research Centre to make sure that we are operating programs that are of good standard, that have good outcomes for young people. We're also affiliated to Big Brothers Big Sisters International, and they set standards and procedures for practice in terms of processing young people for the program, processing volunteer mentors for the program, and matching and supporting those participants for as long as the match lasts. So some matches last for a year and some go into 2 and 3 years. We're also connected with international experts in mentoring. So we are affiliated to the Global Youth Mentoring Network, and we also link in with the European Mentoring Summit, and we try to keep up to date with what's happening in terms of mentoring internationally. And then we have a skilled professional workforce that recruit and support participants. So, hello. Sorry, there's sound there on somebody had their microphone unmuted. I want to show you, because I can talk until tomorrow and you'll all get very bored. So I want to show you a video clip. So I hope this sound and picture works for everyone. So this is one of our matches that said they would spend a little bit of time trying to promote the program. The video only takes about 3 or 4 minutes. It's very short. And then what we're going to do afterwards is put you into different breakout rooms so that you can discuss the video and the outcomes for the young person involved. So I'll play the video now.
Expected something.
The Big Brother Big Sister program, essentially it's a mentoring program over an extended period of time for young people who obviously might benefit from that. It's very much about forming a relationship and then role modeling, I suppose, in a kind of friendly, non-directive way.
My mother and father were heavy alcoholics. Eventually, I was referred to foster care when I was 9 years old. Something happened in the foster home. I got into a fight with one of the other people there, and I was in my sister's down for a while, and we had to fight for about 1.5 years to get them to let me stay with my sister, and then eventually we were allowed to stay together. I've been involved in the Big Brother Big Sister program for about 1.5 years. My social worker recommended the program. Rav is my big brother. Literally at this stage, he's always been there for me. It doesn't even seem like it's a support system. It's as if he's part of my family.
When I met Nolan initially, he was having trouble in school. He had done his mock junior cert at the time. A lot of the grades hadn't gone well. I could relate a lot with what he was going through. So I was able to, we were like buddies. We very quickly got into this kind of palish sort of relationship. I began to notice he was very struck by things like, the lyrics in songs. He was into gangster rap and all that kind of thing, and he could kind of relate that to what he was noticing. He was very interested in the lyrics and what it meant, and he liked to talk about it. And I could just see this is someone who's got a very active, inquiring mind.
If I'm annoyed at school or my sister, he's always there making sure I'm okay. And we'd go out and have chats all the time, and he'd not just be saying, no, you're wrong, or no, you're right. He'd be bringing up across every point of the argument, and he'd make me understand, and it helps me think better as well.
We just have fun. Sometimes we play pool, sometimes we go to the cinema. We've done a couple of the Big Brother Big Sister events. Actually, we got tickets from the Big Brother Big Sister program as well to go to a live football game.
Big Brother Big Sister supplied football match tickets for Ireland versus Greece, and it was my first football match ever. There's no words to describe it. It was just amazing.
He'd just never seen anything like it. He hadn't been there, and no one had brought him. And it was nice to be able to share that with him.
Alcohol and drugs would most likely have played a part in my life if I didn't meet Rav. And I don't even think of going out every weekend and drinking and doing drugs, mainly because of Rav and Big Brother Big Sister. It'd devastate me if the Big Brother Big Sister program was not there for me. If one day it just disappeared, it would be horrible. Everyone that's in foster care should have a support system in place, such as Big Brother Big Sister. Rav's definitely impacted my life in terms of college and school, and opening my mind to certain things. Like, I wouldn't have been able to choose what course I wanted to pick in college, or I probably wouldn't be able to get through this leaving cert I have to sit now in a few weeks. He's always been there for me as a support. He's probably the most important adult I've had in my life. The Big Brother Big Sister program is a great support system for me.
He wants that. I think he's looking for some sort of a constant, someone to have a relationship with that's not erratic. It's got a lot of meaning because I've spent my time doing something that I believe in, and that I've seen results and I've seen growth already in another person, which is it's a very kind of a life-affirming thing, and it's one of the most meaningful things I've ever done.
Now, so we're going to try and break you into the breakout rooms, and you can have a chat about that. Okay, so did you get on okay in the breakout rooms? Yeah, great. Yeah.
No
So
problem.
the two main questions we were asking is, what ways do you think the mentor supported the young person? And how can staff support mentors when they're matched with young people with higher levels of need?
Shall I just read what we
that
what
would be
Laura
great, Natasha. Thank
wrote?
you.
Yeah, we were actually talking mainly still about the first question, and then realized that actually our answer to a first question also sort of answered the second. So
Right.
we were talking about how it seemed that this mentee was getting a lot of chances and opportunities from this mentor that he otherwise wouldn't have had in life, possibly.
Yeah.
Which is really really great to see, and yeah, makes him feel better, at least it seems like that. But also we said that this mentor and program staff should be aware of the potential differences in socioeconomic background, and yeah, that is, I think, one of the things that program staff should
Take into account.
take into account, because I think it was Laura said, like, you should be a little bit reserved with having like consumer kind of activities, because you want this young person to also be able to do these activities that he does with the mentor, also to be doing them alone or with someone else. But if it costs money, for example, then that may be not such a good idea. So these kind of, this can be a little bit difficult, like in terms of socioeconomic.
Yeah, so to take that into consideration in relation to matching him to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Okay. I suppose just to give you a picture of the young people in this higher level of risk category for Big Brother, Big Sister, in 2019, 50% of our youth were deemed higher level risk. And these are the agencies that would have referred those young people. So a mixture of education welfare officers, foster care, homeless services, child and adolescent mental health services, psychology, Jigsaw, which is a mental health service. The juvenile liaison officer is the JLO, so he would be alerted to youth crime, and he would refer into us, and then residential care. So of the 50%, that was the breakout of where these young people were coming from. And just to give you an idea of the referral source in 2020, then I actually pulled this in February. So we had 254 referrals in February. And the breakdown here is the numbers of referrals we received into the Big Brother, Big Sister program. So you can see the highest number there was from the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. So that's just to give you an idea of where our referrals are coming from. In terms of the needs then of those young people being referred to us, they presented with a range of needs, including isolation, mental health difficulties, alcohol or substance misuse, impact of parental imprisonment, family breakdown, or experienced abuse. So it was a broad range of issues that they were referred for. In terms of how we meet the individual needs of the young person, so our focus initially is on developing the caring friendship and establishing trust in the friendship and letting them get to know each other. So we spend the first few months of the match doing that and just letting them enjoy each other's company and learn about each other. And then between kind of 3 and 6 months, we look to the needs of the child and how the program can support that young person in relation to their needs. And we do this through a case plan. So we consult with the young person, the guardian and the mentor, and see what do they think the young person needs support around. The staff member also liaises with any other agencies involved with the young person. And then we devise the care plan and we share it with all of the individuals involved. And then it's monitored every 3 months thereafter. So just from a kind of a summary, what we would be saying in terms of successful mentoring for young people at risk, these are the kind of practice considerations. So the young person must have a clear understanding and they must want to be involved in the program. So it's voluntary on their behalf. And then they must have needs that are suitable to volunteer intervention. So not everybody will have those needs. And if we feel that they are beyond what we can manage in the programme, we will re-refer the young person on to the appropriate service. The volunteer, we're looking for committed volunteers that are capable, and they're open to being matched with a young person with a higher level of need. So we ask them those kind of questions in the interview, and we see what kind of level of need they think they would be comfortable in being matched to. We offer them training and ongoing support and supervision throughout the match. We think that it's really important to have good matches and young people and volunteers that are well matched. So we base these matches on common interests, so they have to have something in common, and complementary personalities. And then we're trying to match the needs of the young person with the capability of the volunteer. And then finally, in terms of our staff, we try to recruit staff that are supportive and caring about the young people and the volunteers, and that will be proactive in terms of the supervision of the matches. And the staff then are the contact for external agencies. We never ask the volunteer to be that contact, because we feel that we cushion them a little bit from that. So there are the practice considerations. Let's see if I can move it on to the next slide. No, oh, there we go. So Bernadine is now going to present the more detailed outcomes of the studies that we did into young people in the youth justice system and the young people in care system in Big Brother Big Sister. So I am actually going to stop sharing my screen, and Bernadine will share her screen.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Yeah, great. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mary. So as Mary mentioned at the start, we've done a lot of research studies with Foróige Big Brothers Big Sisters programme over the last 15 years. And in recent years, we've done 2 qualitative studies where we've looked at the needs or the experiences of 2 particular groups of young people in more detail. So we were curious, we wanted to learn more about young people in care and foster care and residential care and leaving care, and what their experiences have been of having a mentor through the Big Brothers Big Sisters programme. And we also wanted to find out from young people involved in the Garda Youth Diversion Programme, which is young people in the youth justice system, again, what their experiences were. So for the young people in care, we did in-depth one-to-one interviews with 13 young people in care. Some of them were still involved with the programme and still had their mentoring relationship ongoing. Some of them were in their early 20s and maybe were matched when they were 13, so they might have known their mentor for 10 years or more. So we had a whole range of ages and experiences. So it was really good just to get that sense of a longitudinal view on their experiences and how it impacted on the mentoring relationship, impacted on them as they left care and moved into early adulthood. With the young people in the youth justice study, we also spoke to young people, I think it was 12 young people, 15 mentors, parents, and other stakeholders, mentors and guards, police, and so on, just about their experiences of the mentoring program. So I'm just going to share with you some of the findings that were common to both studies. Sorry. Oh yeah, here we go, sorry. So in both studies, I suppose the young people talked about both sets of young people had lots of professionals involved in their lives, be it social workers, psychologists, police, justice type relationships. And you might think that, oh, why would they need somebody else additional in their lives? Surely it's complicated enough. But the young people who spoke to us talked about how they really valued the mentoring relationship as offering a different type of relationship to those provided by professionals or by family members. So they valued the kind of everyday support and the kind of practical assistance, doing things together, the emotional support and the friendship. And overall, I suppose we found that the both sets of relationships in both studies, that it helped young people to kind of, I suppose it helped to strengthen the protective factors in their lives. They were all the young people were dealing with challenges in different ways. And most of these challenges arose from the adversity they experienced in their lives, be it from their family situation, from parental issues, from issues they experienced at school, a lot of early childhood adversity and so on, that they were still struggling with the consequences of. So the mentoring relationship really worked with them to try and alleviate some of those challenges, and to cope better within the boundaries of their lives, and to, as a result, then to actually achieve their potential more than they had before. But it's important to say, as always, that mentoring isn't for everybody. It doesn't always work, and it may be difficult for young people who have had attachment issues and maybe find it difficult to build a relationship with a mentor. So I think when it works, it can be exceptional. For some people, it's average, and for some people, it doesn't work at all. So it's just important to remember that. And also, I suppose, to note, in our study, people who came forward to take part are possibly those who had more positive experiences. So we're probably, you know, they're probably, it's just something important to remember, that there may also be negative experiences that aren't coming forward. So Pat shared this slide yesterday, just if any of you saw his keynote, my colleague Pat Dolan, about the 4 areas that mentoring helped young people across both studies. So I just want to ask you guys, if you want to unmute your microphones for a minute, and just to think, in what ways do you think the mentoring relationship helped these young people in these 4 areas? So say, to start with social and emotional well-being, how do you think the mentoring relationship would have worked to improve social and emotional well-being?
I think a little bit of 4 factors, of all the factors are being named.
Okay, yeah. Was somebody else coming in there too?
Yeah, I think the same, that they could work with all these factors, and it depends of the people, of the concrete person who participates in the program.
Okay, yeah, great, thanks guys. Yeah. Anyone else?
I think so too, but I also think that the social and emotional well-being is the basis of the other 3 categories, because I think that's the most important one for building a relationship with the mentor.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Ruth. Yeah, that's one thing we really found, that having that social and emotional well-being was the foundation for everything else. Absolutely. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. So I'll just go on and give you a little bit more detail about each of these themes. So I suppose we just asked the young people in the interviews, you know, to tell us about their experiences with their mentor, and, you know, maybe what was going on with them at the time in their lives. So they ended up talking about a whole range of things maybe that were happening for them. They would have described feeling lonely and socially isolated. So you might think, again, young people who are getting into trouble with the law, that they're hanging around with gangs of young people and they've got loads of friends. But actually, a lot of them talked about being quite bored and having nothing to do and nobody to hang around with. So, you know, that was one thing that struck me in both studies, was the kind of loneliness and the social isolation that the young people felt in their lives. Some of them didn't have close attachments to family or somebody they could talk to or trust. Quite a few talked about lacking in confidence, finding it hard to mix with other people socially. And also quite a few talked about being stressed and angry. And as a result, they'd kind of act out and take their anger out on other people, which resulted in even more problems. So I suppose how the mentoring helped to alleviate these social and emotional issues was, it was somebody to meet once a week, to kind of hang out with, do fun things together. So they enjoyed having someone to chat with, something to look forward to every week, of having somewhere to go. And then the listening and emotional support that came with that, just from somebody to chat to about everyday things or more serious things. They talked about the mentor helping them with their emotions and behavior. So the mentor might have, if they talked about maybe where they got really angry at school with a teacher, the mentor might say, well, would you try doing this? You know, what about if you counted to 10? Or what about if you took a deep breath when somebody's annoying you? And so a lot of the young people talked about how they actually took on these strategies and approaches. They talked about becoming more self-confident as a result of going places with their mentor and being introduced to new social settings, and I suppose and other young people and other matches as well. And I suppose for young people who had more profound issues in terms of not having maybe a secure family base, some of them talked about a really profound connection with their mentor, where it gave them a sense of stability and was represented somebody they could rely on for anything, you know, any kind of issues that they had in their lives. It was somebody they could go to. So that provided them with a huge kind of social and emotional security that they didn't have before that. So these are just some quotes. Like Mary, who's 19 now, she had been matched when she was a young teenager, and she remembered fondly, you know, we went out for lots of spins, brought her dog for walks and stuff. We went shopping. It was so much fun. Sarah talked about, you know, how she would go home and say, oh my God, I had such a good time. And she'd tell her brother and sister, and that she was always looking forward to it. And Sarah was a young migrant who had come to Ireland when she was 12, and she didn't know anybody in Ireland. And then she and her brothers and sisters ended up being placed in care. So they had a huge amount of trauma, and having the mentor there was just really gave her a boost and was a huge influence in her life. Lily was 14, and she talked about, she described how her mother was in addiction treatment, and she had a difficult relationship with her father, and she was in family foster care living with her aunt, who had lots of young children. So she found that she just had so much stress going on in her life that she saw her match as kind of like an emotional safety valve, where she could just let everything out. She'd go out with her mentor once a week, and she would be able to talk about everything that's going on. It was somebody outside of her world and her family life and her complicated situation that she could just use to talk to and relieve the stress. And Lily had talked about how she also had gone to counselling, but it didn't work for her because she didn't like to have to talk to somebody about her emotions on demand. You know, on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, you have to talk about how you're feeling. So it suited her much better to be cooking and going for a run and going shopping or going for a hot chocolate, and then having the ability to talk as part of that suited her much better than going to counselling. So she felt it made a huge difference in her life. So in terms of education, then some of the issues the young people talked about were that they'd fallen behind at school academically, again, maybe because of family placement moves. If they were placed in care, it might be in a geographical location that was different from where they previously lived, and they might have to move school. So they take time to adjust, and it might end up falling behind at school. They had behavioral problems arising from their emotional issues. They might have just stopped going to school or stopped doing hobbies that they enjoyed because of their emotional issues. Some talked about being expelled or deciding to leave school. Some talked about not having family members to kind of help them to navigate the educational system, or even to provide role models for what was possible from education. So the mentors, they talked about how, again, as Ruth said earlier, the emotional factor was huge, just somebody to relieve stress, to help them to approach situations differently, and to, you know, maybe rationalize that. Like one young guy just talked about how he was always really angry with his teachers, but his mentor helped him to see, well, hang on a second, maybe they're not that bad. Maybe if you just approach things a little bit differently. And it was the first time that he kind of realized that he was actually aggravating the situation, and that if he behaved differently, the teachers would behave differently. So it was that kind of problem solving and just helping them to view situations from a different perspective often made a big difference. Practical support, some talked about getting grinds from their mentors, helping them with their applications for college. Some talked about discussing in an informal way what they were going to do with their future, where they might go to college, career paths, and so on. And a small number of young people talked about having a complete change in mindset about education, whereby previously they had a fixed mindset that they weren't going to go to college, nobody in their family had. And then slowly the penny started to drop that, hang on a second, I could actually go to college. I could do something that I would love to do. And the mentor then facilitated them to achieve that goal. So again, an example of a quote was from Roisin, who was 15. She's talked about how she was always very angry. She'd stopped going to school. She hadn't been to school for something like 100 days, even though she was still only 15. But then when she was matched with her mentor and started talking and relieving stress from talking to her, she started going back to school and going back to her hobbies as well, because she felt like she wasn't holding anything in and she didn't feel so stressed and angry. Edel talked about, she gave some lovely examples of that kind of practical support and emotional support mixed up together from her mentor. She talked about like my home economics project for my junior cert. She was so helpful, and writing up CVs so I could get my first job. She was the one who was doing it with me and everything. My ag science project for my leaving cert, she's bringing me down to her uncle's farm and everything, and she loves it as well. She's very, oh yes, we'll get this done for you now. So you can really feel the kind of enthusiasm of the mentor and the kind of how much it means to Edel to have somebody there by her side, just helping her to get these things done, that she doesn't have the social capital of having a family member with a farm to learn about ag science, that she's gaining that from her mentor. So in terms of social capital and civic engagement was actually a theme that came out strongly as well from the study. Because the big Irish version of Big Brothers Big Sisters is provided through Foróige, which is a youth organisation, it runs a whole range of projects and groups and initiatives all over the country. It's very strong about linking young people involved in mentoring in with other social groups and opportunities, and this really came across strongly in these studies. So a lot of the young people became involved in other youth groups and opportunities, both through their mentors and through their caseworkers, would know what they enjoy and what they'd like, and were well placed to link them into activities that they would enjoy. A lot of them then talk, especially the older young people who had been through the match and maybe gone into in their early 20s, themselves talked about how they had engaged in volunteering and leadership as a result of their experiences, positive experiences of mentoring. And they talked about how they built their own bonding and bridging social capital through connections that they had made through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Like Edel described, that she met people in nearly every county in Ireland because she became involved at a national level in Big Brothers Big Sisters, and she took every opportunity that was going in terms of networking and meeting people. Supporting life and career direction. So again, this emerged most strongly from the older young people maybe who transitioned out of care, and they talked, I suppose, about how their mentor helped them to come to terms with who they were as a person. A lot of them had a lot of, emotional baggage from the past, kind of conflicts about who they were in terms of their family identity and who they are as a person. So just to unpack all those issues and chat it out was really helpful, helping them to clarify their ambitions. For some of them, they talked about where they could see the pull of negative life paths in terms of maybe crime or alcohol or drugs or leaving school early, but also seeing the option for a more positive life path that was available, that their kind of mentor had supported them to realize they could have as well. So, it's not saying that everything was plain sailing, but they could actually, I suppose, they were more aware of that space where they had a choice in terms of what path they took in life. As people talked about providing a role model, there was one young person, Rachel, in our study, who talked about her mentor as just somebody who she really looked up to, even in terms of that she was married and had kids and had a nice home, and she thought that that's what she wanted for herself. Again, simple aspirations, but possibly ones that were maybe beyond her reach before this. And then some again talked about life skills like learning to budget, live independently as they made the transition out of care. So again, Pat showed this slide yesterday, but it's just particularly for the children and young people in care. I suppose we found that a lot of the experiences in their lives on the left-hand side of the diagram had undermined their ability to cope and to be resilient. So they'd experience family stress and conflict, social isolation, they become disconnected from school. And oftentimes the strategies they were using to deal with these things weren't working for them. They were using non-productive coping strategies like avoid engaging in risk behavior, bottling things up and not talking about things, or having a negative mindset that nothing was ever going to go right. Whereas the mentor helped them to move over to the green side of the diagram by being a supportive presence in their lives, connecting them with other social resources and networks, helping them to repair disconnections from school, and then helping them to engage in more productive coping strategies like sports and recreation, listening, and helping them to have a positive sense of agency or a belief that they could actually be in control of their own lives. So again, I suppose even in terms of the youth justice, young people in the youth justice system, one theoretical framework that we found useful was Hershey's social control theory. So Hershey believes that we all have a predisposition to criminal or deviant behavior, but that it's actually our bonds to society that keeps us on the path where we, where we stay above the level of deviance. So in order to engage in conforming behavior, people have to have strong bonds to society. So the kind of bonds that keep people, I suppose, engaging in conforming rather than deviant behavior are things like attachments to family, friends, and community, a sense of commitment to the future, or belief that you have a future that's worth living for, your beliefs, and then also involvement, the fact that you're involved in pro-social activities that limits your likelihood then to get involved in anti-social activities. So I suppose looking across these four categories, we could see how the mentoring relationship helped young people to strengthen their attachments to family, friends, community. It helped to give them a sense of commitment to the future, a belief that they could actually be something, and helped give them the practical support in terms of removing obstacles in their way to achieving their goals. It helped them to kind of, I suppose, refine their beliefs in terms of what they believed in for themselves. And importantly as well, I suppose it got them busy in terms of being involved in productive activities and pro-social activities that kind of reduce their likelihood to be pulled into more antisocial or activities that wouldn't be in their best interests. So that's it from the research side. So just if anybody has any questions, I just check the time. Yeah, we still have about 9 minutes and Mary will wrap up then. So I'll just stop sharing now and I can come back.
Okay, thanks a million. Just, I suppose, to summarize, the two studies found that mentoring can work well for young people presenting with higher levels of risk. And then in terms of our partnership between mentoring organizations and research institutions, they can yield evidence of outcomes. They can guide organizations to improve practice based on the recommendations from the research. And they can encourage mentoring organizations to keep updated with best practice in mentoring internationally. So just to finish off with, I have a very short video clip, and it's just to give you an idea of how we use the research findings in our work to try and recruit volunteers. So it's very short. Oh, sorry, it's only about 1 minute long, I think. Now, so that is it. Thank you all very much for joining us. And we wish you the very best in terms of the rest of the summit. We hope you enjoy it and that you're learning lots from it. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks everybody.